Hi, you tuned in for the Power and Energy News channel ESI Africa. For this episode, I am speaking with Sumaya Mahomed, who is the Country Director for Uganda at Power for All. Welcome, Sumaya.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, I am very interested to hear what is happening in Uganda. It's a country that we do feature on ESI Africa, but not that often. So give us a brief overview, please.
Thank you so much. So Uganda is also known as the Pearl of Africa, but Uganda is a landlocked country. So from an energy perspective, Uganda is really struggling with regards to energy access. If you compare Uganda's energy access rate, which is only 19% with the grid, and renewable energy making up the balance of a total of 54% of the population being connected, it's really lagging behind because both Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania's electrification rates are at least, much higher. Now, the conundrum within Uganda is that you have a fantastic utility. Umeme is one of two, profitable utilities on the continent. Uganda also has the best regulator on the continent. And I think for those of us working within the energy space, it's really mind-boggling to understand why Uganda is lagging with energy access. I think the challenge comes down to it being a landlocked country and the cost, really being a challenge. But I think the government is also recognizing that the focus has been primarily on ensuring that their supply capacity has been boosted, and Uganda has really made strides on that front. Right now, the supply capacity is sitting at 1,200 megawatts, but the government by the end of next year would have bumped that up to 2,000 megawatts, and then by 2030, they're planning to have 3,500 megawatts. So a lot of effort has gone into ensuring that the country really has a sufficient supply capacity, but now the focus needs to shift. People need to use that power productively, and we are starting to see the policy is also starting to revolve around how does the government now, come up with subsidies to ensure that power gets utilized productively within the country, and really just to close that gap within the market.
Right. It sounds like a country that we definitely need to be looking out at in terms of the progress that they are going to be making with the changes. 19% is really low, and as you say, being a landlocked country, it is a bit of a challenge for them. But being landlocked, their role within the East Africa market must be really strong. So where do you see that going in the next 5 years or so?
There's a lot of opportunity to also, export the power. So there is a lot of talk, with the East African community and seeing what are the opportunities. I mean, DRC is now part of the East African community. And I think that is also, in Uganda's favor because Uganda shares a very large border with, that eastern side of DRC. So I think that the opportunity to also just export some of, the suppressed demand is going to play in their favor. But most importantly, I also want to just talk about, the demand stimulation opportunities. Again, there's a unique opportunity to also just, leapfrog. Just like how we saw Africa leapfrog with cell phone technology, we're going to start seeing a huge, shift, or at least, innovation being unlocked. And what do I mean by this? I also just want to talk about, the innovation that is happening within the sector. I think a lot of the utilities are being, left behind, or the utilities have been left behind in the past, but it's really now up to the utilities to come to the forefront and say, what is it that we can do and how do we transform our businesses to support, with the country's, goals. We've spoken about Uganda really wants to bump up that, supply capacity. And that is actually a project that, Power for All has spearheaded in Uganda. And just to maybe talk a little bit about Power for All, if that is okay. So Power for All is a global campaign, and we focused on really accelerating, ending the end of poverty. We cannot have people sitting without access to power. The Sustainable Development Goal is the most achievable goal, but yet we are still seeing a lot of these bottlenecks within the entire, energy supply value chain. And one of the catalytic projects that helps us to achieve our focus as Power for All is an integrated energy project. And that is looking at if your backbone, which is your utility, doesn't get transformed, or they aren't being empowered to work with decentralized renewable energy companies, it's really a lost opportunity. So I think the other big opportunity that Uganda is leading on is really, UMEME is now stepping into that leadership role, and they've said, how do we work with decentralized renewable energy companies such as a mini grid and productive use partners to build that customer's demand, give them quick access and make them grid ready. And what we do see with this project and this approach is that it's really a sustainable model, it's least cost, and it also just helps with, making sure that the benefits to the customer is being realized. So again, Uganda is, leading within the East African community, and we are starting to see, KPLC as well as, the Rwanda utilities looking to UMEME and saying, we're interested, show us, how this partnership can, help with the access agenda.
That's very interesting that you mentioned Kenya, looking to Uganda. So in terms of Power4All's work in Uganda, do you think that there's a lot of work underway in terms of productive use of energy, and especially around a pay-as-you-go business model, and how that is going to integrate itself with the utility or the utilities in Uganda?
So thank you for asking that. So that is definitely a huge space. What we are also trying to do, because before we get to the technology side of things, Power4All is really focused on making sure that the right partners and the right set of actors are working with one another. So within the productive use space, we've set up a platform that enables the Ministry of Energy to engage with the Ministry of Agriculture. And it really has to start there, because if those two aren't aligned, yet they are trying to solve for the same challenge, it's going to be again, inefficient use of resources. So we've created this platform that brings together both Ministry of Agriculture as well as Ministry of Energy together, and all of the DFI sectors, NGOs, and some of the private sector players together. Because everyone needs to be around the table so that we can, one, agree that the challenges are indeed the challenges, whether it is access to finance, whether it is, empowering the communities, because you can support someone with a pay-go model, but do they know how to operate productive use equipment? And that is something that we are also seeing within the pilot that is called the Utilities 2.0 pilot. So what we've done is we've come up also with a model in the pilot where a technology partner can enter and they work with locals who understands the market, and the locals does, the business development side of things and interaction with the customer, while the technology side of things through a, skills transfer program gets managed in that kind of partnership model. So it's all about, partnerships and understanding, do we have the right partners? And if that skill isn't there, how do we come with a skills plan to make sure that there's going to be sustainability and transferring of skills? I would say that those are some of the pivotal things that we are looking at, within the sector.
Right, there's a lot of work underway in Uganda, and I can see that in the next 5 years, we're probably going to be looking at Uganda and saying, wow, can you progress from here? So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, Sumaya, and I wish you all the best in Uganda and hearing from you sometime in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe to ESI Africa for more of this type of news.